Good morning. I just wanted to record a very quick video, really, just to shed a little bit of light on digital marketing as a whole, and try and really explain the different marketing channels, the kind of environment that we work in, and how you can kind of align your digital strategy overall and overall marketing strategy, really. It's part of it is about certain levels of understanding both within the marketplace and your customer, and then how each individual digital marketing channel works, the process for it, what's the point of each channel, and what is it you're trying to gain from each one. And then this will allow you to kind of start to understand that the overall kind of dynamic framework of what is digital marketing as a whole. And then you can basically use this to kind of cherry pick what strategies and what channels will work best for your business. And that's the kind of aim of this video, is to really showcase all the different aspects that you can consider and you should consider before you start investing in any kind of agency or any kind of channel, or before you start throwing your money away, basically. So at least you can come at it from an educated viewpoint. So just very briefly, a quick introduction for me. So I'm Jamie, I'm the founder here at the Funnel Smiths. I've been working in digital marketing for well over 25 years, for the past 8 of which I've run a full stack digital marketing agency. So I've been involved in quite a lot of projects, from website design and development, e-commerce, lead generation, digital marketing campaigns, Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn outreach, cold DMs, cold email, you name it. I've been involved in it, and we've created it at one time or another. So I've got quite a lot of knowledge across the complete landscape. It's not about an individual channel. This is about looking at digital marketing from a business perspective, not from an agency. I'm going to run your Google ads. This is about, let's take a step back and really understand what the options are available, how each channel works, what each channel potentially can be used for. I'm not going to go into individual tactics at this point in terms of the individual channels. This is really a high level view. So when you look at it from a business perspective, you can say, right, well, these channels make the most sense to approach and look at. And these mechanisms make sense when put together in order to be able to generate new business for my business. And that is the whole concept of this video. So I shall minimize myself, and I shall, there we go, a bit too small there. If I look across to the side, it's because I'm using another screen, so I'm not being rude and just talking out the window. It's because I've got obviously this window here, really. So let's get rid of them dots. So the first key thing to understand really is the customer and the kind of marketplace overall, and then how each individual buys from a purchasing cycle perspective. Now, you're probably very familiar with how your individual customers work and what their purchasing cycle is. I would hope you would, but it's not always known, and it's not always mapped to the kind of marketing, the marketing funnel and the different stages of awareness. So you basically got 3 stages of awareness from a customer perspective. So you will have problem, you'll have solution, and then you have product. And my handwriting is shocking. Well, there you go. Right, so this maps to basically the marketing funnel in terms of top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. If you just bear with me, I shall explain everything very shortly. Okay, so when your customers are looking to buy your products or services, there's generally 3 levels that they kind of work through, and it's to identify the levels of intent. Obviously, from a customer perspective, these are just very much kind of static pigeonholes. Your customers are going to kind of fluctuate between each of these, and there's probably iterations in between them, actually, where there's different levels of understanding and kind of being kind of product aware and solution aware. But this is really just to give you, again, that high level view of these are the things that you need to think about when you're looking at your marketing overall, whether it be digital or offline. So the 3 stages. So problem aware. So this is, you may not even know you have a problem, but you have a problem that exists. So it could be something to do with efficiencies. It could be something that you're looking to solve for your business. It's basically, you've got an issue that you're trying to resolve. You may not be aware of it. You may be something of the classic, it's the way we've always done it. Or it might be something that you're actively looking to solve. So you think, right, well, this is a real issue in my business. I need to solve this. So this is problem aware. Solution aware is when you know there's a way of solving it, you're just not quite sure with what product you want to choose. So you know you've got a problem, you know you want to solve it, but then you're not entirely sure what products fit best to be able to solve your problem, basically. Then you've got product aware. So you're aware of the problem you're trying to solve, you know there's a solution out there, and you're aware of a range of products that will potentially solve your problem. So you've got a higher intent. So if you look at it in terms of that level of intent, kind of top to bottom, from a buying perspective, then as you go down this list and down the funnel, you're basically increasing that level of intent. So basically the people at the bottom are more likely to buy than the middle of the funnel or the top of the funnel, because they're in that place where they know they've got a problem, they know there's a solution out there, and ideally they know there's a product, your product, hopefully. And that's the whole concept of marketing, is to be able to present that product and service to these marketplaces. Now, going back to the overall marketplace. So top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. So it kind of maps against this problem solution product. So the top of the funnel is usually about 60% of the marketplace at any one time. So these are people that fit your ideal customer profile, basically. So it's people that may know they have a problem, they may not know they have a problem, but they would fit your solution effectively from a business perspective. These percentages are rough percentages because they do vary by industry, but this is just a bit of guidance really more than anything else. So then you've got solution aware. So people who know they've got a problem, know that there's a solution out there that solves it. These are normally about 35% of the marketplace. So again, as you picture it from a funnel perspective, it kind of feeds down basically to people who actually want to buy. So within your total marketplace is normally between 3 and 5% of your overall marketplace that are in a position to buy. They know they've got a problem, they know there's a solution, they know there's products out there that will solve it for them. Ideally, they want to buy your product, and that the whole concept of it is to position your product or service in front of these people. Now, the problem you've got, every single one of your competitors is targeting the bottom of the funnel, without a doubt. People are becoming a little bit more educated now, so they're also targeting the middle of the funnel as well. And this is basically list building, or doing things like social SEO, creating content, making educational content, and it's to target this middle of the funnel because they know there's a solution out there and it's people doing the research. So if you think about the last time you bought like a TV or something like that, you know you want a new TV, you start researching it, so you start looking at all these different types of TVs. You look at whether it's high definition, whether it's 4K, whether it's 8K now, what the pixel density is, all these different levels of information that you're absorbing. And then the bottom of the funnel is you know about the brands, you know about the different types of TV. You're then kind of refining your process, your purchasing process, to kind of finalising and making a decision, basically. And it works for regardless of what product or service you're selling. People go through the same thought process. So you have to adapt to it, and you have to kind of facilitate it from a marketing perspective, because otherwise how are you going to sell your product or service ultimately, regardless. So basically, as I say, this is where most people focus their efforts, is on this 3 to 5% of people who are actively looking to buy at any one time. And this is kind of facilitated via digital marketing channels in terms of things like Google Ads, SEO to a degree, albeit SEO covers a larger kind of segment. But again, I'm going to talk about each channel in detail so you understand where it fits and how it fits with this overall process. The key is to understand the makeup of the marketplace first and foremost, because if you don't realise that this is how it works, then how are you going to market to individuals? You're just going to always focus on this 5%, which means you're just going to be competing against everybody else. And how do you then differentiate your services? So you've just got to be mindful of how people buy and what their mindset is, the psychology behind it, and how they process and how they go down this step-by-step process to make a purchase. And this is very high level. There's a lot more involved in this. This is really kind of basic level kind of purchasing approaches, but it's good to kind of understand it even at this level. You're probably a lot further on than you were if you didn't know this. So this is kind of really to get to grips with understanding the marketplace first and foremost, then you can start looking at this stuff in terms of working out your digital marketing, your lead generation map, etc., etc. So the main thing you want to do these in this kind of day and age is, rather than targeting the 5%, you really want to be looking at MOFU and BOFU basically in terms of that target market. And it's simply because these people know this is a solution, they just might not know about your product. So it's positioning your product and business and services in front of this audience type, and then giving them the information they need to then move them to become product aware and to make that purchase. If they've got a problem, yes, you can capture them to a certain degree with content, but it's a lot longer in terms of that buying cycle, and there's a lot more information involved in that in terms of that kind of nurturing process and that presentation of content basically. Okay, so now we know how people buy. I'm going to start talking about the lead generation map and basically the kind of map of digital marketing as a whole, really, and how each one of these elements impacts your marketing and how it should be aligned ultimately and how it should fit together. So let's do that. So I'll get rid of this. I'll get rid of that. Give myself a bit of room. Right. So when we're looking at digital marketing and lead generation, we do need to think about these different areas. Now, I'd say, this is based on kind of Pareto's law, but 80% of whatever you do as a business needs to be focused on your audience. So you need to understand how your audience buys, where they kind of frequent online, what their kind of demographics are, what their psychographics are, what things resonate with them from a messaging perspective, what is it they're looking to solve, and what do they perceive as the benefit of your product or service to them. It's not about your features. It's not about, oh, look how great I am. It's about what value and the perception of that value that you can offer to your audience type. That is what will make the difference between success and failure when you're looking at any kind of marketing, whether it be online or offline. Especially if we're trying to attract, again, going back to the kind of MOFU, BOFU breakdown in the funnel, then you need to be able to differentiate yourself. So you need to be able to convey the value that your business offers to your audience type. This is, as I say, this is about 80% of the core things you need to consider when you're looking at your marketing, especially the offer building. Now, people, again, get this mixed up. People think of an offer, oh, it's 10% off or 50% off. There's a discount. That's not an offer. The offer is basically how you package your product or service and how it's then presented to your target audience. That's what constitutes an offer. And it is basically, it needs to be focused around, people talk about working to niches and things like that, and there's various discussions about whether you should niche down or whether you shouldn't niche down. The way I look at it is, your business provides different services or different products. They're adaptable to many different markets, but when you're actually doing marketing and you're trying to speak to an individual, then you should speak to a niche, because that's who you're trying to sell the product to. You're not trying to sell your product to every man and his dog when you're trying to create your marketing, because that just makes everything far more difficult than you could ever imagine, trying to talk to everybody at the same time. What you want to do is talk to an individual, and that will make your messaging resonate a lot better with your target audience. So, where was it up to? Yeah. So the audience, as I say, it's imperative you get that right, basically. So it's worth spending the time doing research. And there's various different areas you can find out about your clients. Obviously, you've got things like Perplexity, and you can look online and research them. A good methodology, a bit of a secret tip for you, is if you want to try and find out the core problems that people are having based around your product or service, and you want to speak to the problems and solutions scenario, then look at Amazon, and then look at books based around the service or product that you sell. Then look at the comments, and people will identify all the things that they're not happy with, and that's generally things that are missing from the book. So that's the problems they're trying to solve, and you can facilitate your content around that, really. So you're talking specifically to content that people want to know and people want to find out about. Okay, so I don't want to talk too much about the kind of audience time. It is very, very important, but this is more to try and explain the differences between the conversion assets, traffic. I'm not really going to talk about the analytics side of things. I'll touch on a couple of different KPIs that you really need to know fundamentally as a business, and what you should be focusing on. But I'm not going to go into great detail about the kind of analytics. It's more about the conversions and the traffic really, and what constitutes what. So, right, I'm going to start off with traffic. So there's basically two types of traffic. So you've got inbound and outbound. And basically all the different traffic channels kind of fit underneath these brackets. Now there's things like networking and things like that, which again, I'm not going to talk about networking and partnerships and referrals, because this is more about kind of proactive marketing and creating a marketing campaign to drive traffic to your kind of conversion asset. It's not really about creating partnerships and getting referral bases, because it's a whole different conversation, if I'm honest. So it's not something I'm going to cover in this video. So inbound and outbound. So you've got inbound. So this is people, this is marketing channels that are driving traffic that have got a higher level of intent, basically, because these are people that are coming into your web asset. So where it could be a website, it could be the funnel, it could be a landing page, and it could be ecom. I know you can't really read what I'm writing there, but it's just really to identify what it is. So this is inbound traffic. So if you think about it, this is users going to your page. So this is generally via a few different mechanisms. So Google Ads is one. I'm not going to talk about display ads because that more fits under kind of outbound and broadcasting. So inbound is Google Ads, SEO, search engines. So this is where people are actually searching. So they're searching for your product or service. So again, going back to the marketing funnel, the problem aware, these are kind of really kind of more searching for a product. So they know there's a solution that exists. So these are bottom of the funnel basically, in terms of what you're targeting. Obviously from an SEO perspective, it's kind of a bit of a mixture between bofu and mofu. But again, you've got SEO is a kind of something that needs to be discussed on its own really at the moment, because there's a lot of changes happening with search engines. So it's a different game from an SEO perspective, and I'll explain more when I talk about the individual marketing channels in a minute. So then, so this is kind of inbound traffic. Then you've got outbound. So this is when you're doing things like cold outreach. You've also got ads, but broadcasting based ads. So these are like LinkedIn ads, Meta ads. I'm going to call it Facebook ads there, but it's basically Meta ads. So these are broadcasting mechanisms. They're not the same as Google ads. So albeit people report on metric cost per click, it's only really relevant to Google ads and to ads that are driving inbound traffic. Yes, they are relevant to your broadcasting based ads, so you can see what your cost per click is, but you're paying, the methodology that sits behind these mechanisms are different. And again, I'm going to explain what I mean by that very shortly. But this is just so you can fundamentally understand the difference. You've got people who are actively searching and coming to your web asset, and then you've got outbound, which are basically you're reaching out to people and you're saying, look at me, look at all the amazing things we can do. And you're doing that via two different mechanisms. Now, each of the marketing channels fit underneath one or the other of these processes. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Right, where do we start? So we'll start with traffic. Albeit I know that's number 3 on the list, but ultimately, if we bear in mind basically websites, funnels, landing pages, e-commerce, I think we can all agree they're just a touch point where we need to get people to. So this is an area, they serve different purposes in terms of what they are. So like a website, for instance, again, another misunderstood element. People assume it's like a lead generation mechanism. It really isn't. It's more about validation You will get leads through it, but it's more of a validation approach. It's not designed to convert leads, which is why you should never send ads to your homepage. Funnels are specifically designed for lead generation, and this is kind of more marketing psychology based in terms of a step-by-step A to B process, and this is obviously what we do as a business. Landing pages are a kind of shorter, refined version of a funnel, and they're useful if you're driving traffic that's inbound and they've got a higher level of intent. Just because you can, the level of conversion is easier via a landing page. You don't necessarily need to build as much trust and as much rapport as you would do if you're utilizing cold traffic, for instance, so the outbound stuff. Then you've got e-commerce, so this is obviously transactional based websites. Again, you can send traffic to each of these. E-commerce is a kind of it's its own mechanism, I guess, in terms of purchasing, because you've got various different things that impact that. Again, I'm not going to go deep into e-commerce because it's its own thing, and it can leverage funnels and it can leverage landing pages. So you've got a website. E-commerce are generally websites in their own right, and then the funnels and landing pages are the lead generation mechanisms that drive traffic and drive sales. E-com, obviously, if you've got products on there, you can drive them directly through the product page, but again, it's like a simplified version of a landing page, which is then part of a funnel. So you can see how they all kind of fit together. So let's talk about the traffic channels. So the key traffic channels usually that people think about is you've got, let's use a pencil, that'll be useful, won't it? So we've got SEO, Google Ads, say Meta Ads, then you've got LinkedIn, then maybe organic social. What else have we got? So I mean, these kind of cover the main ones that people do. Email marketing. Now there's my spelling's gone shocking. Can't even see what LinkedIn says there. Right, so you've got SEO, Google Ads, Meta Ads, LinkedIn, organic social, email marketing. So let's just talk about them for now. You'll understand why anyway, really, because they're the kind of main channels that people explore. There is various other different channels. Obviously, you've got the various social media platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, and various other things. But when we're looking kind of, especially from a B2B perspective, these are the kind of core mechanisms that people look at from a digital marketing perspective. This is not a finite list, obviously. You've got YouTube as well, actually. But you'll start to see the orientation of what these channels are and what they represent. So SEO, for instance. So we said it was the middle of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel. Now, SEO is changing rapidly at the moment, and it's down to the way search engines are presenting your website. So it used to be that you would go for, let's try and rank in the top 5, we'll get loads of traffic, and we'll get sales as a result. And the sales were based, the sales are passive, so they're not, it's not a lead generation mechanism. It's a way of getting people to your website or to your web asset. It's about getting the right people there, admittedly, by using different content that's on your website. But unless you're doing something like conversion rate optimization on your website, then SEO stands alone as a traffic driver. It's not, you don't get leads direct through SEO. You get leads as a result of SEO in your website, getting more traffic. That traffic then converts on your website. It's not the SEO element that does it, if that makes sense. So what we're looking at from an SEO perspective is basically we're targeting MOFU and BOFU. So when you're doing SEO on your website, you'll obviously optimize the infrastructure of it so it's indexable by Google or any other search engine, and that is basically technical SEO. Then you've got the content side of things, which is becoming more and more important, and it's using, I'm not going to go into the various details of SEO in terms of like the EAT and various other things, or your money or your life strategies, and I'm not going to talk strategy at this point. This is really about to, as I say, highlight the purpose of each channel. And then you can decide whether that fits with your marketing, and then you can work out the strategies and tactics that you want to take. So SEO, MOFU, BOFU in terms of content. So you have technical SEO. God, that's terrible. Just hang on. Let's get rid of that. Right. Can we see what that is? Right. Right. So try again. Still not great, but hey ho. So you've got technical SEO, then you've got content, and then you've got offsite. So content constitutes on-page, what they call on-page SEO. So technical SEO is making sure your website is as healthy as it can be and indexable as it can be, both from a performance perspective in terms of page speed, load, the code base that sits behind the website, making sure that the kind of bots and crawlers that come from the search engines, that they can index the content on your site and they can read what's on there essentially. Then you've got on-page and content. So this is like basically a content strategy around your keywords and how you're driving traffic based on those keywords and the level of intent on those keywords to your website. And this is what constitutes the MOFU and BOFU, because the level of intent will then sit at either MOFU level or BOFU. So for an example, middle of the funnel content might be around talking about a certain problem, and then providing a solution to it. So depending obviously what industry you're in, it could be it could be, so let's take accounting for instance. It could be that your accounts are a mess. You've not really got any clarity in terms of your financial status. So you would provide content that talks about 10 best ways to make sure your content is, your financial books are kept in the best condition, something like that. Then you've got BOFU content. So this is more direct, so it's more intent led around that content. And the idea is you're targeting keywords that have got a higher intent. So where do I buy accounting services, or accounting services in Manchester, or accounting services in Liverpool? That is people actually searching for an accountant, so it's got a higher level of intent. So this is why you create things like location pages and stuff like that, because it's basically trying to capture that intent-led content, and that's how you drive more traffic. So SEO is about volume, but it's based on volume around traffic, and there's different levels of that. The piece that's usually missing is how you connect these two dots in terms of MOFU and BOFU, because you'll get lots of traffic that become solution aware, and then you just kind of hope for the best that they come back to your website at certain points, unless you're using things like Google Ads and you're using retargeting, which again, this is a kind of paid strategy which works differently. But a lot of this is about kind of visibility and being able to be seen online. That's what SEO is, and it's even more that now, because obviously with the changes in the way the search engines are positioned, I say it's no longer about ranking in the top 5. That's just not going to be a thing, especially within about 6 to 12 months, and that's to do with generative AI. There's various statistics already in terms of the kind of generative box that sits at the top of each search page. Don't know if you're aware, but lots of different searches have different results and different layouts in terms of that page. So the generative search box at the top is around, it's appearing now on about 58% of all different searches across all the different industries. Now, this is massively impacting the volume of traffic that your website will get, because people aren't clicking through to your website. People are just reading it and getting the answer there and then. And it's a result of all the different various AI infrastructures that are being put in place, like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. And it's basically the kind of generative AI, and this is the way it's going to go. Rankings will become almost a thing of the past in the future, and I know it's going that way because it has to. And Google have already adopted it. They've already said that this is the way they're going to take it, but the way that they've got their business model is going to change, because it's no longer going to be we're providing you a vehicle to get to a website. They're going to provide you answers and keep you in their ecosystem, and that is the kind of fundamental way that they'll monetize you. So your websites will still be important, but your traffic will drop massively. People won't click through to your website. What they're going to do is engage and consume the content that's coming through to these generative searches. And the reason I can say this so confidently, because in the US, in the past week, Google has just launched the AI mode, which is basically like ChatGPT for search engines. So Google's version of it, and it's a tab that sits at the top. feel free to Google this, by the way, and have a look yourself, where you click on it and it just basically gives you a conversational based feedback in terms of those search results. So it's no longer position 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a conversation, and it's basically providing that information. Now, in order to be able to optimize your website from that, yes, you can do SEO, but it's more about your overall landscape and authority. And this comes back to EEAT in terms of your content. It's not just about your website. It's about everything you do online. So you've got to optimize for everywhere, not just your website. And this is the way SEO is evolving. It's changing from what it used to be as a constitutional, yes, let's focus on your website. We'll do a little bit offline, which there's various different signals as well as link building and stuff like that. That's all still important, but it's more of a focus of your wider visibility online, and then how the search engines are interpreting that. And that's one of the key elements that you've got to consider when you're thinking about SEO. It's a rapidly changing landscape, and it's a bit of a roll of the dice at the moment because the algorithms are changing at such a high rate. It's very difficult to adapt and to constitute it. The one thing you can do is make sure that your content's really good and really individual and from a first person perspective, as well as then the optimal condition of your website, albeit over time I think even websites will start to become almost a thing of the past. That's just the way I think it's going, but hey ho, not to worry. So that's SEO as a whole. So the follow on from that is Google Ads. So this again is the kind of MOFU and BOFU approach, but this is the inbound. So each one of these is kind of inbound really, because people are searching, and they're searching via keywords. So when I was saying before about the cost per click and why it's important for these is because that's how the businesses make money. So Google, for instance, makes money every time you click their listing, and it'll be the same obviously with the changes in the search engine. They'll still have ads because that's how they make money. That's the only way they really kind of make money through the search engine. So the ads will always exist. That is a kind of surefire bet. They just get more expensive as they become more competitive, and then you've got to evaluate whether it's actually worth it based on the channel. But so Google Ads, it is kind of inbound traffic because people are searching and then clicking on it based on a keyword. So you're bidding for that keyword to appear. So hence why the cost per click is much more important. You're paying for people. It appears based on the search, based on what you bid, and then you're paying a price per click. That is the transaction that you're making with with Google as a business. And as I say, this is kind of intent led. There is lots of different strategies. Google Ads tends to be quite expensive now, just because I think they're trying to facilitate the drop that they've got in terms of the page layout and all the traffic elements. But Google Ads works because it's a lot more intent led. You can use it to kind of do more traffic based campaigns to MOFU, but again it comes down to what we were saying before in terms of the keyword intent around what you're targeting. Is it accountants Liverpool, accountants Manchester, where it's got a high intent, or how do you buy, or where do you get, or things that have got a higher purchasing intent behind it? Or is it more kind of broader keywords where it's it's kind of higher level, it's got less intent overall. Now I know Google very much is focused on making you spend as much money as you possibly can because they love it. So they encourage you to use things like different match types like broad match, phrase match, and exact match. They're trying to push everyone to use broad match now, as well as kind of discovery ads and things like that. And that the whole purpose of that is because they can inflate the click-through rate and get more money based on those individual clicks. It's just a way of monetizing more than anything else. They're very, very good at monetizing you from a business perspective, but it does provide results because, especially if you're targeting intent led, because people are clicking on keywords that have got a high level of intent. They're further down that kind of buying funnel. So it does work, but you've got to bear in mind the cost. The key to all of this is there's one metric that underpins everything, and this is the key metric that you need to focus on as a business. Forget everything else. Forget CPL, forget impression rates, and this is, well, it might be easier if I just write it actually. So this is your cost per acquisition. How much does it cost you to make a sale, basically? This is the key. This is really the key element, and that is the golden metric in terms of what you should be focusing on. All the other metrics matter. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, when you're looking at your marketing, you have to work backwards. So you have to look at your product, or service, the margin available in that product or service, and then what you can afford to pay per client, to pay per new customer. Obviously, it's cheaper to retain a customer than it is to get a new one, but if you're looking at scaling your business and getting more customers, this is the metric that you need to utilize. Because if you can work out, say you've got 50% margin on your product or service, so just for easy numbers sake, so say your product or service is £100 and you've got a 50% markup on it, 50% margin, sorry, then you can pay anywhere up to 50 quid to get a new client. Ideally, you want to be like 10% of that. So you've got like 4 to 1 ROI, or it's actually cost per acquisition channel, which is, it is kind of based on a ratio. But I'm not going to, yeah, okay. So yeah, the cost per acquisition is the kind of most important thing. The things always stuttering about there is there's other things that you can look at in terms of lifetime value, in terms of how much a client is worth you over a period of time. So if it was £100, they stay with you 12 months, your client's worth 1,200 quid. So it gives you a larger option for cost per acquisition, but you can work through that as an individual basis. But let's stick to the £100 now to keep it simple. So you've got 100 quid, you've got 50% margin, so that gives you 50 quid to play with. So as long as you're getting clients for under 50 quid, you're profitable. So whatever mechanisms you're using, as long as you're getting a client or getting a customer or selling a product for that 50 quid, for under 50 quid, anything between the difference between that and the cost of the product, that's basically what you're going to make from a profit perspective and a net profit. Very basic maths, obviously there's a lot more involved in it, but this is kind of, again, very much high level, but it gives you the starting point and what you need to think about when you're looking at your marketing. You have to start with your product or service and what you can afford to pay, and then work backwards, because all these have different costs associated to them. So how do you know what channel is going to work best for you unless you know how much you can afford to pay for a client? The answer is you can't. And this is the mistake people make. People just go, oh yeah, well I just need more traffic, or yeah, I need to do ads, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. But they've not really got an understanding of what the cost of the channel is, and then the mechanisms involved in order to basically sell that product or get a new client. And this is the important thing, and this is what I'm really trying to highlight with all these elements. So going back to this, sorry, I kind of digressed a little bit. I will come back onto the CPA stuff. So the SEO and Google ads, so that's your inbound. I'll just call it IN for now. It's just, that's in. And then you've got outbound. So Meta ads, LinkedIn ads, Google display ads, they're effectively broadcasting. So if you think of your TV, when you're watching adverts on TV, that's normally what they're doing. That's why it's called the broadcasting network. Basically what they're doing is putting products and services in front of a cold audience, and then showing it over a period of time. And then you've got psychological triggers like reciprocity and kind of the frequency things that encourage you to buy over time. And that's the principle of it. That's the broadcasting. Now this is paid very differently. So when I was saying up here before about the cost per click, so that's very much CPC led. These are based on impressions. It's actually a stat called CPM, and that's cost per mile. And what that represents is how much you pay per 1,000 customers that the ad is positioned in front of. There's various different things that impact that. Obviously, then you've got things like the cost per click, which is representational of the percentage of people it's put in front of. So if we're looking at the cost per 1,000, so if you've got, so say it costs £1,000 to be in front of 1,000 people. If you have, say, a 50% click-through rate, then you're going to see 500 people. Not 5,000. You're going to see 500 people. So 500 people are going to see your ads. So effectively, that's costing you £2 cost per click. So it's a stat that is created from what you're paying per views, not per individual click. And that's the difference between these kind of inbound ads where you're paying on a cost per click basis with a level of intent against the statistics that are aligned with broadcasting. So using things like meta ads, LinkedIn ads, Google display ads, even things like email marketing and YouTube and stuff like that. It's not, unless you're paying for a specific click, then it all uses this model. So it's about how many people can you position your ads in front of, and then the stats that kind of map up to that, and then the conversion rates accordingly, which all lead to this. Regardless of what any channel you use, it all goes back to the CPA. So then we've got organic. So this is kind of, it's in the same in the ballpark of SEO, but when you're looking at organic social, you're not really, well, you should be creating content that drives people to your website or web asset, but it's more, it's about engagement as much as it is trying to drive direct sales. So when you're doing organic sales, it's more kind of brand building as well as creating awareness. So it's very much tofu bofu in terms of that overall strategy. And we did actually say that. I've got mofu as well, sorry, in front of the. So it's kind of looking at the whole marketing, the whole funnel, but that's really based around your marketing strategy. And the whole concept with this is consistency over time. In order to be able to do organic social properly, you have to be consistent and you have to take your time, because it takes time to do. Ads, this is the beauty of it. SEO takes time because it's just the nature of what it is to drive traffic and get all the indexing, and you're based around what Google will index and when, as well as all the different search engines. Ads are obviously, you get up and running quickly. Organic social, it is again organic, so it takes time to gain traction and feed the algorithms with the information they need to, in order to trust you. They need to trust you before they'll present your information, just to make sure you're not a spammer more than anything else. But it takes time, and as I say, depending on the strategy, you'll be targeting all the different areas. Then you've got things like email marketing. So email marketing are broken down into two different areas. So you've got cold email, and then you've got marketing to a list. So your cold email is basically sending emails out to your ideal customer profile that might not be aware of your business, basically. You're just basically, you're creating a strategy that you're reaching out to people. And again, you've got various different, this is volume based, very much like the broadcasting element, because ultimately through cold email, that's what you're doing. You're broadcasting to a targeted audience type and trying to get a response as a result. Through the marketing list is basically using mechanisms to build a list of prospects that have already got a level of interest. So they're already at MoFu level, and you're sending them content through your email marketing to be able to engage with them and to, move them to kind of the bottom of the funnel in terms of that purchase process. And that is the kind of core difference between the different types of marketing, basically. Again, it's very much volume based, and this is more kind of nurturing. In terms of they've shown an interest, you're basically positioning your business as the best solution to their problems. And then cold email is they might not even know they have the problem. You're kind of broadcasting. So cold email is very much a volume based game. But yeah, the whole concept of it, again, once you've run all these, you're coming back to the cost per acquisition. What's it costing you based on the conversion rates and the engagement rates, open rates, all these various different metrics, which culminate to the cost per acquisition. Then you've got YouTube. So again, this is about content creation. It fits very well with organic social. So even though it's video content, you're having to do it consistently and over a period of time to gain traction on it. Many of the famous YouTubers you've seen have been doing it a long time. And it took maybe a year, 2 years before they became popular. So that's why they've built up a bank of content that gets seen to them, and the algorithm likes them. So the algorithm presents their content. Obviously, there's very different strategies about how you can promote things sooner rather than later, and you can utilize things like YouTube ads and stuff to kind of increase coverage. Again, this goes back to the broadcasting element. But this is really just to understand that this is part of organic social, and it takes time. Ultimately, this three things that you've got to consider is money, time, and environment. And these are the things that impact basically your overall marketing. Money is obviously how much you're going to pay. So people get hung up on fees for agencies or what they're going to spend on ads. But if you're making money from it, what does it matter? If your cost per acquisition is £500, but you're making 10 grand, what does it matter? It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter what you're paying to get that. Yes, there's a consideration of trying to get it cheaper, but why would you compromise that based on quality? It doesn't make any sense. It's about the ROI. So if you're getting a good ROI based on your investment, doesn't matter what you're paying on ads, doesn't matter what you're paying on to the agency. It's about what you're paying per customer. Again, cost per acquisition. Time. So instead, if you're not spending money, you're spending time. So you have to do it yourself, basically, or you have to have someone doing it for you. Again, the time is then equated over that period. So your cost is the time involved in it. The disparity you get is when you're paying an agency for, say, SEO or organic social or things like that, and it takes a long time. So if they're charging 2 or 3K a month, it could be 6 to 12 months before you start seeing any results. That's an issue because then you're paying 12K. Whereas with ads, obviously you're getting it a lot sooner. Allows you to test quicker. Time is a difficult thing to scale, but in the long run it becomes cheaper. So it has like the curve becomes flatter in terms of that adoption curve. Obviously with money, if you think about spend, that goes up like that. Oh, sorry, no, it goes probably up straight away. And yeah, no, it's not actually. It's basically, yeah. So the money will increase over time. So you start at a budget, then you do it over time. With SEO, you normally kind of, or the content is you'll do it on a kind of repetitive basis, so consistently. Whereas your money from ads will scale over a period of time to increase that revenue. Whereas this will stay the same, but your actual traffic will go up as a result, if that makes sense. The environment is impacting based on where these mechanisms sit. So at any one time, this is why you should never really rely on just one channel, because they change the algorithm in that channel and your business can collapse overnight. Don't want to scare you, but this is what happens. It's what happens when they did the big algorithm update in Google a few years back. I think it was the Penguin update. A lot of businesses lost traffic overnight and so had to close a business because they weren't getting customers anymore. So this is why you need a multi-channel approach, and you need to consider different ways of getting this traffic into your web asset. And this is why list building is so important, because you're not then reliant on the algorithm and you're not fallible to that algorithm. So this is why you need to build a list of email addresses and potential customers, because then you can market to them anytime and you're not bound by the environment. You're bound by the amount of people you've got basically in your list. But yeah, the environment can change. So again, like I was saying before, with the SEO and Google Ads and everything in terms of the search engines and how the search engines are changing, you're at mercy of that. You've got no control over that element. You're subject to the environment. So it's something that you need to bear in mind. Even things like the cold outreach are now subject to various stipulations based on the platform itself. LinkedIn, for instance, cold DMs and stuff like that, cold email outreach. Great way of doing it, but now there's restrictions in place that stop you from reaching out to too many people because people spammed it, as they always do. So that's the kind of environment part of it. So we've covered the kind of traffic elements. We've touched on websites, what websites should be in terms of that validation tool. Not really talked about it in great detail, to be honest. But I think this is probably something that we need to go into now, actually. Right, so what I'll do, I'll just get rid of all these elements here. Right, so when we're looking at kind of websites and we're thinking about funnels and landing pages, so you've got, oops, I forgot to put the pencil on. So you've got a website. So a website can have lots of different pages. It has a lower conversion rate. So if you're sending traffic to your website, it will convert at a lower rate. And the whole reason for this is because you've not got a direct journey. You've not got like an A to B journey. People go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. As they click around all the different pages, they've got, oh, look at this video. Oh, that's a lovely video. Oh, that's a nice image. Let's read this bit of text. And there's generally not a very specific A to B journey. Now, a lot of a lot of performance-based agencies will focus on what they call conversion rate optimization. So that's the user journey, and it's big money because it makes a big difference. Small percentages make a big difference if you're getting a lot of traffic. So these whole businesses and agencies that are focused on the customer journey optimization through a website, for me, it's a little bit futile because you're still presenting people with all the different options. Yes, you can increase the conversion rate of the website, and I am still a big believer in it, but I don't believe it's the ideal mechanism. I think what a website should be is a hub of information that then leads to either a funnel or a landing page, because these are designed with marketing psychology. And basically, these mechanisms are designed to generate leads and taking people on this A to B journey. A website isn't, but it should be a kind of direction into this mechanism. So then you're capturing details. And if you think about it, you've already got it built within your website to a degree. So you'll land on your home page, you go to a service page. From that service page, you might enter details in a form, or you might click it and go through to a contact page. So you've kind of got part of this mechanism, but you've not got it optimized in terms of that approach and how you're actually capturing leads, and you're giving people too many options to go other places. So this is why funnels and landing pages work better. Again, I'm not going to go into e-commerce just because, yeah, it's a whole different ballgame in terms of what it is, and it can facilitate all these different elements. What you need to think about is if you've got a website, is yeah, you might be driving traffic to that website, but expect lower conversion rates and passive leads. If you want to generate leads directly, you can have either a third-party standalone funnels, which is what we do, as well as landing pages. And then what you're trying to do is send traffic into these. So again, going back to all these different traffic mechanisms, you've got various different levels of intent. You can send all the traffic into these mechanisms. So you can use Google Ads and send intent-led content into these. You can you can broadcast. It's about those mechanisms where you can measure the percentage rates at each step. So if I give you an example of a basic funnel, for instance, so if we're sending ads into a funnel, so what you would have is you'd have an opt-in, and then that will go through to like a VSL page, which could be, if we look at kind of bookings, so we do a client booking page, and then through, oh, thank you, yeah. So that will go as a step-by-step process in terms of how this works. So if you know the conversion rates, if you know you're getting 1,000 people, as I said before, at £1,000, click-through rate 50%, you know that into your funnel you're getting 500 people. Now, because you've got a step-by-step process, you can work out the percentages of the conversion rate of what people are taking to go from each step. So if you've got, say, 50%, which then you know is 250 people reaching that level, and then you've got 10% go through to the booking page, so you know there's 25 people, and then say you've got 2% of them convert into actual sales. That was a bad start. I shouldn't have done it that way. It's made it more difficult for myself. So say 10%. So then you know there's 2.5. Basically, that will convert into sales, and that's basically how a funnel works. This is basically called attribution modeling. If you do it on a website, then obviously you've got all these different areas that people click through and go through, and the various different areas around your website that will click back on. So it's very difficult to work out what your percentages are in terms of that cost per acquisition. All you can do is look at how much you paid on ads, what that cost per lead is, and then the states that it goes through. So if you think about it, you've got your main cost of your ads, then whatever they go through to, so say it's like a lead farm, but then you've got your sales on the back of it, and you need to tie all this together, because otherwise how do you know what you're paying per client? So it's the conversion rate from the ads to your website, to your funnel mechanism, to what it is to book a call. Then obviously things like show up rates that impact it, and then the conversion rate from that call into a sale, and then you know exactly what your cost per acquisition is. So it's that end-to-end process is what I'm trying to emphasize. It's not about what your cost per lead is, because your cost per lead, well, actually it's there, isn't it? So your cost per lead ends on that form submission. You're not taking into account your sales or book calls, or basically what converts into what. So the CPL sits there, the CPC sits there. So you can suddenly see this kind of mechanism overall. You need to focus at the end goal. This is what's important. These are important, but if your CPA is within within your KPI, so within that £50, as we said before, then it doesn't matter as much what these are as individual statistics, as long as you're making money, ultimately, which is why we're all in business. We're all here to make money. We're not here to kind of be nice. Well, I'm here to be nice. I'm not sure about anyone else, but yeah, so that's basically how that works. So yes, you need to consider these and you need to optimize these to make more profit. But the point of optimizing these is so you can make more money at this end in terms of your cost per acquisition. You lower your cost per acquisition means you make more money. It's that simple. And this is why when you're looking at your overall marketing mix, you need to be able to track it back. If you can't track it back, you're never going to be able to scale. So which means you're just going to be wasting money on ads. You're going to be wasting money on SEO. You're going to be wasting money on social. You're going to be wasting money on every single marketing channel unless you know your data. And I can't emphasize that enough. That's why the analysis and the tracking needs to be accurate. Now, I have got a caveat to that because I'm going to be unpopular here. Things like GA4, Google Ads, they're not accurate. So the data that these produce are not accurate, basically, and they're not accurate for quite a few different reasons. And it's to do with basically how they capture data and how they process data. When they release GA4, they basically use events. So these are kind of micro signals based on each individual page of what people are doing on those pages. Now, because of obviously the massive amounts of data that is processed by Google, they can't use what they call raw data. They use it to a degree, and they say they use it, but they've also said that they use what they call data sampling. So you're not going to get a like for like representation. So one person arrives on your site, it reports one. It does sometimes, but not all the time. So you can't take this as gospel in terms of, right, well, I know I've had 200 people on my website. It might have been, it might not have been. It might have been bots clicking through. It could be one of a million different things. But what you've got to do is use it as a benchmark. So you say, right, my benchmark is I've got 100 people coming through with the website. How has that increased over the trend over a period of time? You can't look at it as an individual stat because the individual stats are not representational of actuality in terms of that number of people who are hitting your website, hitting your funnel. The only way you can do that is if you're using raw data. So you have to look at analytics packages that are built into your system that actually monitor the people who land on your website and then progress through your website. A good system is Pweek Pro. They say they use raw data, but from testing it, they're not always 100% accurate again because it's a third-party system. So you've got things that impact it in terms of when people block cookies, for instance, then it doesn't get picked up by these third-party systems because you've got a cookie that's sending information back to that processing center and feeding that information back. Unless it's actually happening and being monitored directly on your site where you're not actually having to utilize cookies to capture that data, then you're always going to struggle, basically. So just bear that in mind when you're looking and interrogating your data. That is probably not correct and it's probably not accurate in terms of what it is, but you've got to use it as a benchmark and you've got to look at it over a period of time. Yeah, which I know is pretty bleak, but it's the truth, basically. This is how it works. I say, if you don't believe any of what I've said, feel free to Google it all. It's fine. It's, as I say, I know this from experience. This is not made up stuff. Yeah, so you use that as a benchmark, but the idea would be really you need to capture your own data. So this is why, again, even things like traffic and things like that, you've got to use it as a gauge, yes, and then you can see how well things are working. But prime example, if you've got bots on the web, which are like code-based mechanisms that just go around websites clicking things or making it look like they've clicked things, that can inflate your stats overnight. And how do you know whether it's something that has been done in terms of the work that's been done on the site, or how do you know whether it's just a bot just clicking it? Ads are rife for it, specifically Google display ads. There's systems out there that pick up kind of anomalies and kind of circumnavigate bots clicking through it and costing you money. So like Google Ads is rife for it. I've seen it many times where the actual expenditure has gone through the roof, and the reason it's gone through the roof is because bots are clicking it and you're being charged based on that click. It's not human, it's just a bot clicking it. So you've got to be mindful of this, and it's all these different kind of pitfalls that when you're looking at your overall marketing, you do have to bear all these elements in mind. And each part of these processes have these individual pitfalls. Nothing's foolproof. And it's why when you're looking at digital marketing, you've got to get the data and you've got to analyze that data and you've got to feed it back. If you're not analyzing the data, how the hell are you going to know? You just don't. You need to be, you're just basically spending money based on a whim and emotion. And how do you make decisions based on emotion? Badly, usually. So you have to use that data, and it's the whole reason why we do what we do here at the Funnel Smiths in terms of how we market. I'm not intending this as kind of any kind of sales message as such. That's not the purpose of this video. It was really to just kind of highlight the various different mechanisms and how they work, and to really help you as a business understand the landscape from a digital marketing perspective. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I'm going to go into today. Obviously, I've been talking for an hour now, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up really in terms of the things that you need to look at. So obviously, just kind of tracing back to what we were talking about earlier, audience needs to be 80% of your focus. This is the core element you've got to get right. Make sure that you're speaking to your audience type. The conversion mechanism, just understand what it is and what the purpose of it is. A website is not designed to convert. If you use it as a validation tool and build systems and mechanisms around that website, then you can capitalize on all the traffic that you're sending to your website by things like SEO and various different social media campaigns and stuff. But then you want to lead them into a funnel, you want to lead them into a landing page to capture their details more effectively, basically. And you want to basically be capturing people who are bottom of the funnel, who are active, but you also want to build your list. I can't emphasize how important it is to have your own list, because then you're not reliant on the environment. You're reliant on your own list of data, and you've got complete control of it. I hope that makes sense. Then you've got the traffic channels. So again, just reiterating the inbound, outbound, and how each one works and what the mechanisms are that sit behind those. I know I didn't go into a great lot of detail. I could be here literally all day if I talk about each individual one in a lot of detail around strategies and tactics and various other things, but that's why I didn't want to go into that. And then obviously the analysis. So what do you do from a tracking perspective? But don't just stop at the cost per lead. Map it back to your sales, so you've got your cost per acquisition, so you know exactly what you're paying per client. Then you can evaluate things properly. If a cost per lead goes through the roof, it doesn't matter. As long as you're making money on your cost per sale, what does it matter? If it goes up, it could be going up for one of the reasons based within their environment. But if the rest of the statistics align and you're still making money through a cost per acquisition perspective, it doesn't make that much difference. If it goes up and it makes a huge difference in terms of the amount of people that you're converting and you're wasting time and things like that from a business perspective, then yeah, it is a big issue. But this is the KPI that you should be looking at, is this cost per acquisition. That is fundamentally the most important element. And then, as I say, work backwards. Don't work forwards, which is what most people do, to start their ads and go, oh, I don't want to spend £1,000 on ads. It's because they don't know what the cost per acquisition is. Because why would you? There's risk. What you're trying to do is mitigate risk as best you can by saying, right, I know what I need to achieve. How do I achieve that? And what is the best mechanism to achieve that? And that's when you can start looking at your traffic channels, because then you can understand what each one costs and what the likelihood is based on different conversion rates and that type of thing. So then you can calculate and you can forecast roughly what you're going to sit and whether it will sit within your cost per acquisition, and then whether it aligns with your budget as a business. I appreciate there's a lot of information there, and I know my handwriting is terrible, but I hope you found that useful, and I hope you heed my warning about building your own list and capturing the details of people that you want to speak to. It's not spam if they can benefit from your service, is another thing to remember. So things like cold email, cold outreach. If you're providing value to an individual, why wouldn't you? Think of it this way. Bit of an analogy. Someone's banging on your door. You think, who's that mithering? Bang on the door again. Who's that mithering? Banging on your door again. Who's that mithering at the door? I'm just going to go and open the door. I was watching telly, but I'm opening the door. You go to the door, you open it up, they tell you your shed's on fire. All of a sudden, there's a massive amount of value that guy's just provided, and you're no longer unhappy about him banging on your door. That's cold outreach. Okay, so I'll leave you with that, and I hope you found that useful. If you do want to talk about your digital marketing, any kind of strategies, things like that, we focus around funnels Just a shameless plug at the end. Uh, we focus on sales funnel systems and basically building ecosystems around your business so we can generate leads. And we use things like these processes, as well as all the statistical analysis and everything else in order to get you the best results possible that sit within your KPIs. That's the principle of what I do. It's why I designed it. It's why I moved away from just doing a basics agency, because we couldn't facilitate each step based on what we were doing. So that's the whole point of the Funnelsmiths. Yeah, so if you do have any questions and you kind of just want to have a bit of a chat about your digital marketing campaigns and how you want to kind of move them forward, feel free to reach out. It's jamie@thefunnelsmiths.com, or visit our website, or I'm sure you'll see one of our ads online. All right, thanks for listening, and again, I hope you found this useful. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.